guys, let's go. Parshas Vayakel, page 516.
Oh, it's Rabbi.
Okay. Well, Hashem thought so. Vayakel Moshe es kol hadas b'nei Yisrael. Moshe gathers all the people. Vayomer aleihem, Eile advarim asher tziva Hashem lasos osab. This is what Hashem has commanded to do. Let's read a couple of psukim. Sheishes yomim teyasa malacha. 6 days, malacha should be done. Vayom hashvi yelchem kodesh. On the seventh day will be holy. Shabbos, Shabbos on Hashem. Kol ha'osav malacha yumas. Anybody who does work on Shabbos is put to death. Lo sivaru eish b'chol mashosechem yom Shabbos. You should not burn a fire in all of your dwellings on Shabbos. Now, before anything, how many prohibited activities are there on Shabbos? 39. Now, as a maybe I could trouble you. You'll just to close that door. Thanks. The first thing is it's not called work. It's a mistake because malacha is translated often as work. It's not work that's prohibited on Shabbos, because if I take a pen and I write 2 letters with the pen, then a person is liable for the death penalty, assuming that they're witnesses and either edim and hasra, witnesses and warning. If you pull a tomato out of your salad because you don't like it, you are liable for the death penalty on Shabbos. That's right. It's called borer. It's called prohibited selection. So if there are 2 witnesses and they say, now remember, to get the death penalty, by the way, even when the Sanhedrin was around, rarely was the death penalty carried out. There are 3 opinions in the Mishnah in Makos, once every 7 years, once every 70 years, and not at all. Those are the 3 opinions. And in order to get the death penalty, you would need the following circumstances. Witnesses say to you, if you do that, you will die. You say to the witnesses, I am doing it in spite of that. And then you proceed to do it within toch kedei dibur, which is within 2 or 3 seconds. Those are the first things that you need. So if witnesses, tell you if you kill him, you're going to die, or if you're going to commit an act of immorality, you're going to die. So I can understand the person when it comes to murder or immorality in a fit of passion or anger, saying, I don't care, right? And going ahead and doing it, and doing it anyway. I don't think there's ever been in history somebody who had witnesses saying to him, if you pull those tomatoes out of your salad, you will die. And so he said, I'm doing it anyway because I want this salad. I think most people would just say, you know what, I'll just go with the gefilte fish. Forget about the salad. I'll just go. I don't think anybody in history has ever been executed for that. Even though people could be executed, people were executed for desecrating Shabbos, but not for eating a salad. Well, the idea here is we're not looking to kill people. We're looking to emphasize the importance and the fundamental place that Shabbos plays in Judaism. And that's why we talk about a person who is Orthodox, as we call him what? How do you determine whether somebody is a religious Jew? Do you know? Is he Shomer Shabbos? Is he a Shomer? We don't say, he's a Shomer Kashrus. I would say, he's a Shomer Shatnez. Right? The line is Shomer Shabbos. The line is Shomer Shabbos. Because you will have, it's remarkable, you'll have people who keep kosher, but they don't necessarily keep Shabbos. There are very few people who keep Shabbos but don't keep kosher. Shabbos is the line that determines whether or not we could count you in a minyan, and whether or not we could drink your wine, and whether or not, you could do a lot of other things. You could do other averas. But you keep Shabbos, we could drink your wine. If you don't keep Shabbos, you can't drink your wine. You don't keep Shabbos, they can't count you in a minyan, unless they're except for extenuating circumstances. That is the fundamental nature of Shabbos. So the Torah repeats Shabbos numerous times. Because of the severity of Shabbos, number 1. So there are 39 malachas that are done on Shabbos. Now watch this. Take a look at, first of all, now where do we get these 39? It's a backup, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. It's not work, because if I write 2 letters, which is a very small amount of exertion, then you can be liable for the death penalty. If you take your chair and you pick it up and put it on the table, pick it up and put it down 100 times on the table, you're not liable. That's a lot more work, but that's not a That's not a wedding law. It's not a prohibition. That's not liable for a death penalty. There's no prohibition at all. You may need a psychological assessment, But there's nothing, you're not doing anything that is not considered prohibited. Okay, so what's going on? The categories are 39 categories of creative activity. Creative activity. That means there's an idea over here, and if you stop and think about it, you'll see the method. There's a method to this madness. Why is it prohibited? What's the goal of Shabbos? The goal of Shabbos is to focus, obviously to focus on our own spiritual growth, because during the week we are distracted and we are sidetracked by our work. The person's making a parnasa. And number two, Shabbos is the day that you're going to be spending with your family. Shabbos is going to be a time where you're sitting at a Suda. So the Torah says, we're going to create the playing field for you, and we're going to take away any distractions from you. Nobody's distracted by putting a chair up and down on a table. But you may be distracted by art, and you may be distracted by working with hides and trying to create a product, produce a product, and all the other prohibited activities, which are all activities that you could be drawn after. And therefore, Torah says, put that aside for a day. Put it aside. Get to you 1 second. Put it aside for a day. And there are 39 categories of prohibited activity on Shabbos. Okay? Now, if you take a look at the word la'asos. La'asos. So la'asos breaks into lamed is how much? 30. And ayin shin taf. Second line in the middle line where it says Asher tiva Hashem la'asos. Lamed is 30. Ayin, shin, and taf spells the letter Tesha, which is 9. So la'asos, lamed is 30, and Tesha is 39, number one. Number two, count the words of Vayakel from the beginning of the Pasuk till right before the word HaShabbos. Count the words.
Is es kol edas, is that considered, because the dash is in between, is that considered one word or three?
25? 39.
39 words. There are 39 words from the beginning of the parsha of Vayakel until the word Biyom, right before Shabbos. Right? So this alludes. These are just. It alludes to the 39 prohibited categories of malacha on Shabbos. Okay. Now,
Wait, is that breaking the Torah also?
What's that?
Is that breaking the Sefer Torah?
What do you mean? There are 39 words in the Sefer Torah.
Never mind.
Yeah, this is what it says in the Sefer Torah. Yes. This blue book is what you're going to see in the Sefer Torah. Yeah, absolutely. He's still in Tosos over there. Yeah, right, absolutely. So there are 39 words. Delete. Okay, that's a 39. Okay, that alludes to 39 categories. Okay, now. The first question the commentaries talk about over here is, if you'll notice, Moshe gathers the people. We're going to come back to that in a second. But look at the second where it says, Sheshias yamim te'ase melacha. On 36 days, te'ase means should get done, should be done. It doesn't say ta'ase melacha. It says te'ase melacha. The work should get done. So, the idea, in other words, if I want to tell you to do work, Sheishes, I mean, Tasa is really the command form. Why Te'asa? It should get done. So part of the idea is when you get to Shabbos, the attitude should be your work is done. Whatever happened, and whatever needs to get done, it's going to wait till Sunday. It's as if everything is done. Your attitude on Shabbos is whatever your work is, Te'asa, it should get done. It's done. Te'asa malacha, it's done, it's finished. Not ta'asa, te'asa. It's out of my mind completely, which is also one of the benefits of Shabbos. Because other than a life threatening, you have a company, you have a factory, and your factory is on fire, there's nothing you can do about it on Shabbos. If it's unless it's life-threatening. There's a complete release on Shabbos, which is why it gives you that psychological release. I am completely off duty. I don't think about it on Shabbos. There's nothing to think about, nothing to talk about, nothing to think about. We're completely detached. A complete detachment from my mundane pursuits during the week, number one. Number two, the Torah is teaching you what the attitude to work should be. We live in a world of illusion. The illusion is that God says to Adam Harishon after the sin, you're by the sweat of the brow, you're going to earn your livelihood. Right? B'zeyas apecha tochal lechem. By the sweat of your brow, you're going to eat bread. That means that from the time of Bereshis, had Adam Harishon, let's say Adam Harishon wouldn't have done the original sin. Where would we get our parnasa from? Well, we'd be living in Gan Eden, and we'd be plucking bread off of a tree. Remember, there's an opinion that the original fruit was a wheat. There are three opinions in the Gemara. It was either a wheat, a fig, or a grape. There's a medrash that adds that it was an esrog. What did he eat? What was the original fruit that Adam ate? What wasn't it, by the way?
Apple.
It was not an apple, right? It was not an apple. Right? Where'd that nonsense come from?
Christianity.
Where'd they get that?
Europe, where they had apples.
All right, that's right. That's right. The king, I heard this from Rabbi Becher. It's very interesting. The King James Bible, whatever that is, the King James Bible says that Adam ate the magnificent fruit. And they didn't have, it's called the magnificent fruit. And then the apple came to Europe. They didn't have apples in Europe. And people started eating the apple, and they said, wow, this is magnificent. Right? And therefore, and from that point, they made a Gzeira Shava. They made a Gzeira Shava, magnificent. So it must be, they made the kvetchin, with the thumb, and they made it into an apple. And then Hollywood got a hold of it, and the rest is history. Right? There are three opinions in the Gemara. The Gemara says it was either a grape, because wine causes all the trouble, or it's either a fig, because a fig, what they covered themselves up with fig leaves after the sin. So the thing they sinned with is what they, or it was a wheat, because man only gains intelligence when he eats wheat. Now what that means is, how could the original fruit have been a wheat? What does that mean? Wheat is not a fruit. Well, it's only because after the sin, the way we produce bread is we take grains of wheat, crush them up, and you make dough out of them. Originally, the wheat you took, like a bagel, there was a bagel tree, and there was a Kaiser roll tree, and there's a poppy seed roll tree, there's probably a donut tree and a lemon meringue pie tree, and you just took it right off the tree and you just ate it. It's only after the decree that now you got to grind it up and you got to go make bread out of it. So there's a decree, the same way that there are other decrees in the reality of life, man has to sweat for his livelihood. But don't make the mistake. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. Ultimately, you want to hear something amazing? Hishtadlus, when you make hishtadlus, so you go to work as an accountant, or you go to work as a truck driver, or you go to work as an underwater explorer, whatever your job is, that's all an illusion. That's a form of tefillah. It's a form of prayer. That is what I have to do, because God said do this in order to earn your livelihood. But don't think that that's what earns your livelihood. Te'asa, you should see it as it's getting done, not that you're doing it. Sheishes yamim te'asa malacha. Your work, I work because God said I have to work. But don't think, the definition of a great job? A great job, it means you're paid a lot more than you think you deserve. That's a great job, right? A great job is where, wow, they're actually paying me for this? That's a great job. Obviously, the best job in history was Gene Siskel. You ever heard of Gene Siskel? Okay, Gene Siskel, he was a movie critic. And he would, once a week, he would come on the 10 o'clock news at night, and he would report his opinion of various movies. So his job was to watch movies, eat popcorn, and then tell everybody else what he enjoyed. What was good. That was a pretty good job, and he got paid for it. He probably got bribed also. But he got paid for it to say which movies are worth watching, which aren't. I assume he got bribed. But that was a great job. That was a really great job. I had a guy who was a sports reporter. He wasn't in Ursameh. He lived in my neighborhood. He was for Washington Post. He was a sports reporter. I asked him what his job was like. He told me he would go fly in first class on the airplane, stay at a 5-star hotel, take a cab to the game, sit in the press box, watch the game, and take out his laptop, and for 2 minutes he would report who scored how many points, who won, what happened in the fight, was there a fight, close send it, get into a cab, go back to his 5-star hotel, fly in a first class to another city, and then go watch another sporting event. I said to him, that sounds like it was a great job. He says, it was. I said, you gave it up to become a Baal Tshuva? I said, then, is the job still open? Could you imagine? That's a great job. That is a great job. So the Torah says, Te'asa malacha. Te'asa malacha means you should see it as if it's getting done on its own. You think that you're earning a livelihood. You think you're earning a livelihood. You're not earning a livelihood. You're doing what Hashem said to do because that's what Hashem said to do. That's how He created the world. But don't think that that is what's causing you to earn your livelihood. Okay, now, let's go for a ride. You remember, gentlemen, that we said that there's the concept of kina, taiva, and kavod. We've spoken about this numerous times. The three averas that are the underlying cause of the three tendencies or characteristics are the underlying cause of every avera. Kina is jealousy, taiva is desire, and kavod is the pursuit of honor. And we explained once that when you carry it to its extreme, kina leads to murder. Kina in its extreme, envy in its extreme could lead to murder, like the first murder in history, which was Cain and Hevel. Cain was jealous that he killed his brother. Taiva in its extreme is immorality. And kavod in its extreme is idol worship. Because instead of submitting to God, I'll do it my way and submit to the idols that I want to submit to. That's a form of kavod. Okay, so you have three, kina, taiva, and kavod, which in the extreme are idol worship, immorality, and murder. Okay. The way to rectify them, the three counterforces are what? Torah, avoda, and gemilus chasadim. Torah, which is the counterforce to desire, because it's the Torah that allows us to overcome our physical desires. Avoda, which is submission to God, which is the way to overcome honor. And gemilus chasadim is obviously concern for people as a way to overcome kina, jealousy. Okay? Now, if you remember, right before the Torah was given, the Jewish people had three mitzvahs. Mitzvah number one was that they had to build a Mishkan. Okay? Sorry. Mitzvah number one. Oh, here we go. Okay. First of all, there was a limit on where they could go. Because Baruch Hu said the Torah is going to be given, but the people can't breach through the boundaries. There are boundaries. They're not allowed to go past. Everybody, if you go past, you can't go up on the mountain. In other words, you have to, I want to serve a certain way, and God says, no, this is the limitation on you. That is a counterforce to kavod. They had to separate from their wives for 3 days, which is obviously to control taiva. And it says they went to Mount Sinai, ki ish echad belev echad, like one man with one heart, which is obviously like gemilus chasadim, concern for each other. So you have all three requirements, which are the counterforce to kina, taiva, and kavod. Again, the requirements are limitation of your access to Har Sinai, which is countering kavod, limitation of access to the wives, which is countering taiva, and ki ish echad belev echad, they're united. There's unity, which is the counterforce to kina. They then did the avera of the golden calf. Once they did the avera of the golden calf, so then the golden calf, which involved all three averas again. There was kina, they murdered Hur at the golden calf. Hur, who tried to stop them, was killed, which is kina to the extreme. There was taiva, because it says they got involved in immorality. And there was kavod, which is idol worship, because they're not serving God the way He wants to be served. So all three things which had been put under control now burst out again at the golden calf. So guess what's needed now? What's needed now is going to be a rectification once again for all three things. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes down when? On Yom Kippur, comes down from the mountain. Yom Kippur obviously is the limitation on taiva. Yom Kippur is the limitation on eating and on marital relations. Yom Kippur is the rectification for taiva. They have to build a Mishkan, which is obviously the rectification for kavod, because the Mishkan is serving God the way He wants to be served. Then there's one factor we're missing, which is what? Unity. Vayakel Moshe es kol hadas b'nei Yisrael. Moshe gathers the entire congregation of Klal Yisrael. Again, there's unity. And therefore, what's happening over here is that we are post-golden calf. And once you're post-golden calf, so those three averas, kina, taiva, and kavod, again, needs some form of rectification. So we are post page 516. And therefore, Vayakhel begins with the gathering of the Jewish people. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Daled. Pasuk Gimel, sorry. Lo sevaru eish b'chol mosvosechem b'yom HaShabbos. I'm enchanted by this. Several commentaries say, don't burn a fire in your dwellings on Shabbos. Now, the plain meaning here is that you're not allowed to light fires on Shabbos. Right? You can't lighting a fire on Shabbos or extinguishing a fire is a prohibition. Remember I told you about Rav Shraya Dublitsky? Rav Shraya Dublitsky was a big Rav. He was nifter a couple of years ago. He was walking on Yontif. With a candle. On Yontif, you're allowed to move a fire around. Shabbos, you can't. Yontif, you can. And he was walking on Yontif, and the tip of the candle, the wick of the candle fell right onto his hand and was burning his hand. Now, what's your gut reaction? What's your instinctive reaction when that happens? You shake it. Problem is, what was his reaction? He did like this. He neutralized his hand. Because if you shake your hand, so then you might knock off the wick, you might extinguish it. Now, I'm not sure, according to halacha, that you have to let it burn you. I don't know. But that was his instinctive reaction. His instinctive reaction was to grab the hand and neutralize so he doesn't, chas v'shalom, extinguish the flame. Number one. There was a big masa. There was a Rav Dovid, you'll love this. Rav Dovid Baharan. This is around the turn of the century, the 19th, around in the late 1800s, around the turn of the 19th. So Dovid Baharan in old Yerushalayim, where people were poor and people used to sit and learn day and night. So he used to sit in a base medrash, and his daughter would bring him food. Every day he would sit in the base medrash all day long. He sat and he learned. His daughter would bring him food. So she'd bring him a little bit of food. Food was probably a piece of dry bread and a piece of herring. And she brought him like a little jar of milk. And in the winter, they used these kerosene burners to keep themselves warm. So his daughter brought him a little jar of kerosene. Okay, so one day, and then he would eat, and then an hour later she'd come and she'd clean everything out. So he's sitting there learning. His daughter comes in, and she says, "Tati, you didn't drink your milk." And he doesn't pick his eyes. "I drank my milk. Don't bother." He's learning. He says, "Tati, you didn't drink your milk." He says, "I drank my milk." He says, "Tati, you didn't drink your milk." He looks up, and sure enough, the milk wasn't drunk. What had happened was he was so involved in his immersion in his learning, instead of drinking the milk, he drank the kerosene. Right? Now, my reaction would be, under the circumstances, that nobody light a match around me. That would be my reaction. What was his reaction? He looks up, he sees, I made a bracha levatala. Because he made a shahakol and drank the kerosene. It was a wasted bracha. That was his reaction. Right? His reaction wasn't, oi, my stomach is suddenly not feeling so good. Right? Yeah. Nobody. Right? His reaction, I made a bracha levatala. Right? So the first thing here the Torah says is lo sevaru eish b'chol mosvosechem. This is the prohibition of burning a fire on Shabbos. Now, more than that, several commentaries say lo sevaru eish b'chol mosvosechem. Make sure you don't get angry on Shabbos. And remarkably, there's always a yetzer hara. The funniest joke of the year. You know when you're going to hear the funniest joke of the year? Probably on Tisha B'av. Yeah, on Tisha B'av you're going to hear a funny joke. Right? And on Shabbos, when you're supposed to be calm, that's when you have the biggest yetzer hara to get angry. And I heard a man, I was once by a relative, it wasn't religious, but we were visiting. So he announces very dramatically, we're going to have peace and harmony on the Sabbath if I have to break everybody's bones to get it. so sometimes in life, you're the very thing, because you're in a situation, when are people saddest? When are people sad? On Shabbos, when you're supposed to be cheerful, that's when people are saddest. I think they have the most suicides in America right around Christmas time. Wow. Christmas season is when people realize how lonely they actually are. That's what happens. So on Shabbos, when you're supposed to be upbeat, that's when there's a yetzer hara to be sad. It's all a yetzer hara. So comes along the Torah, says, don't get angry on Shabbos. Lo sevaru eish b'chol mosvosechem b'yom HaShabbos. And the commentaries point out, and if you want, yes, here's the mystical for you, right? Here's a little bit of mysticism. The commentaries point out the fires of Gehenna don't burn on Shabbos. You know that? The people who are in Gehenna, they have rest on Shabbos. But somebody who burnt a fire on Shabbos, so for him the fires of Gehenna are still burning. And that means somebody who who gets angry on Shabbos, then after Me'av Esrim, he's got some issues up there. So you don't get angry on Shabbos. Why would you get angry on Shabbos? Because no, spilling a chalt, no. Spilling a chalt, no. People get angry on Shabbos because there's a certain urgency that people feel, I have to be ruchni on Shabbos. I want my family to be ruchni also. I want my family to be spiritual, especially a man who's working all week, and this is the only time he has time to educate his kids, so he educates them all right with the wrong way. There's a certain, let's be from now, let's be religious, let's be spiritual. Right? That's why if you go and what you do is you just alienate people. If you go to the Hasidim, the hardcore Hasidim, you sit around Shabbos. You know what Shabbos looks like by them? They're chilling. They're just chilling. Everybody's laughing, joking, eating sunflowers. They're chilling. That's what Shabbos looks like. Just chill. Just relax. Just relax. Have a good time. And what happens is you have to know because Shabbos is what builds your family. You got to do it right. You got to do Shabbos right. Don't be tense and nervous. Just let it go. Some people think, no, we have to. You know the problem is because when you're a Baal Tshuva, even not Baal Tshuva, you visited some big rabbi and you were at his Shabbos table with his kids and they sang and what do you call it? And it was just felt like so ruchni and everybody singing and saying divrei Torah and talking in Yiddish, and that's what you decide you want for your kids. Right? But you don't realize, I was just at the house in Chicago. The oldest kid is 10, the youngest kid is 2. The Shabbos table. They're very relaxed. How long do you think your kids are going to sit at a Shabbos table for? What are you expecting to happen on Shabbos? The kids are all going to say, you look at the kids' book, look at the children's books, all the children's books. The fathers say there, everybody looks fresh, clean. The father's saying divrei Torah, and all the kids are just looking at him like this. And they can't get enough. Right? No, the Shabbos, little kids are little kids. What do you want from them? Lo sevarich is very easy to lose perspective, number one. Number two, the commentary said, the Chassam Sofer says, Sheishes yomim teyasa malacha, 6 days you should do malacha, lo sevaru eish b'chol moshe miyam Shabbos. The malacha it's talking about is do the malacha of ruchnius for 6 days. Do the malacha of your spiritual pursuit should be in the 6 days. Don't only burn the fire on Shabbos. Don't only burn the fire of ruchnius on Shabbos. That means all week long when you're working, it should also be a pursuit of ruchnius. Not like, okay, now is work. Okay, now we're going to shift into Shabbos mode, and now we'll be from for 1 day during the week. No. Not only on Shabbos, all week long. Now, having said that, be careful. Having said that, how are you ruchni during the week? How are you ruchni during the week? You can learn Torah, but not if you're being paid to do a job. If you're paid to be a job, ruchnius means that you work 60 minutes for the hour, because that's what you're being paid to do. That's your ruchnius. Your ruchnius is doing the job properly. When you're not at work, then you learn Torah, go to Daf Yomi Shir, have a chavrusa, whatever you do. But if you're being paid to do a job, it's not like, the boss isn't looking, open up a chumash. No, that's called theft. The boss isn't looking, don't kitzel around on the computer and start visiting other sites because he's not in your cubicle with you. Do the job that you're paid to do. That's ruchnius during the week. Okay. Now, nobody likes hearing that. Take a look at Pasuk Daled. Vayomer Moshe el kol adas b'nei Yisrael lemor zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem lemor. And now we're going to talk about giving the donations to the Mishkan. Vayomer Moshe el kol adas b'nei Yisrael lemor zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem lemor. Now you'll notice that it says the word lemor twice. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe el kol adas Yisrael lemor. He says to them, lemor zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem lemor. Why does it say lemor twice? Lemor means to proclaim.
It's telling us to do.
Telling us what?
It's telling us. It's for us to know.
Okay, that's true. Why does it say lemor twice? So we're looking at the next puzzle. Kichume itchem truma la Hashem. Take a donation. Kol nediv livo yevias trumas Hashem. Anybody who donates his heart, they're going to bring zahav, kesef, and achoshes. And it talks about now. Earlier it taught us what materials are going to be used for the Mishkan. Now it talks about the actual donations. You ever see plaques up on the wall? When you walk into a shul, there's a plaque. He donated this and he donated that. And you got any plaques in here? Are there any plaques anywhere?
Right outside the door.
Outside the door. There's one outside the base medrash, and there's one on the top of the building and the outside of the building. All the plaques. It's a good thing or it's not a good thing?
Good thing.
Why?
Because it shows other people who want to donate what's going to happen.
That's right.
It causes them to donate.
That lamor, the second lamor is publicize it. When people give donations, publicize it. Why? Because that motivates other people. So the Gemara says a person who donates money, if a guy gives money for tzedakah, and he says he's giving the money because his son, for example, is not well, and he donates money that his son should live, the Gemara says he's a tzaddik gomer.
Wow.
How do you like that? With completely ulterior motivation. The motivation is his family member should become healthy, he's called a tzaddik. Why? Why?
Because he knows it's gonna help.
Doesn't always. Sometimes it doesn't work, or it doesn't work the way he wants it to. You know why? Because he gave. I don't care how we get you to give. Give. You gave. You give money, you're a tzaddik.
Really?
You give money, you're a tzaddik. If you give. You want to give it on the sly? Give it on the sly. Sometimes you should give it, and it's a mitzvah to publicize it, because that'll motivate other people to give. And sometimes you have a person who specifically does not want to be known. He does not. Sometimes that's in life, that's the avoda also. I want to stay humble, I want to stay behind the scenes. Yeah, but for the good of the cause, we need to publicize you. It's better for the team if we publicize you. Then that becomes the mitzvah. And that's the lamor. Okay. Now, I want to show you something over here in Pasuk Hay. And then skip down to Pasuk Yud. And it goes through the entire, all the various things that they have to bring. And then Pasuk Yud, 6 lines from the bottom. V'chol chacham leiv bachem, every man wise of heart, yavo v'yasu es kol asher tziva Hashem. They should come and do whatever Hashem commanded. So, first of all, you'll notice it's a strange expression, chacham leiv, wise of heart. Where do you usually think of wisdom?
The brain. Enlightened.
Right. So what's that? Wisdom is usually, we associate wisdom with the head. Why is it chacham leiv? So who is it? I forgot the name of it. The Ha'emek Dover, the Netziv. The Ha'emek Dover says, you can have a person who does not have necessarily the book smarts, but there's a certain instinctive, there's a certain intuition of knowing the right thing to do, which, by the way, is very unique to women. That's why women don't need the intellectual pursuit that men have. They know intuitively what's right and what's wrong. Women sense it. That's why a woman has much more of a conscience than a man does. And she has a sense of what's right and what's wrong, even in Avodas Hashem. And never having opened a sefer, they have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. You could have people who are the chacham leiv. I sense in my heart what's right and what's wrong. And then the Torah says like this. Every chacham leiv, I want you to pay attention carefully. This is vital. V'chol chacham leiv b'chem yavo v'yasu es kol asher tziva Hashem. Come and do what Hashem has commanded. So, do you know anything about the briskers?
Yeah.
Okay. The briskers are always known for their stringencies and their very, very meticulous, their meticulous loyalty to halacha, to the point of almost people who are not briskers see them as being somewhat either extreme or what's it called, OCD. So the brisker Rav, who was not OCD. The Brisker Rav was the Gadol Ador. He was at the time of the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish and the Brisker Rav were the Gadol Ador. And the Brisker Rav was also known for his meticulous mitzvah observance. So a man once came to the Brisker Rav and he said to him, "Why are you so nervous about it? Why are you so nervous about messing up? Do you really think you're going to mess up?" So the Brisker Rav said to this guy, "Can I ask you a question? Are you nervous about falling out of bed at night when you sleep?"
No.
The guy said, "No." So he said, "Don't you ever wake up in the middle of the night to check if you're near the edge of the bed?" He said, "No." He said, "You sleep comfortably through the night?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, so do you mind if tonight will put your bed right on the edge of a 10-story building. You'll sleep on the edge of a 10-story building. Would you be nervous? I'd be concerned. He goes, why? You're never, I mean, it's the same bed. It's the same bed. It's the same bed, it's the same circumstances. What would you be nervous about? The guy says, well, in the unlikely circumstances that I might roll over, it could have disastrous results. The Brisker says, that's how I see Torah and Mitzvahs. I don't think I'm going to mess up. I know I'm not going to mess up. I know I'm doing things right. But in the unlikely circumstances that I do mess up, that the results are disastrous. And therefore, I got to make sure not to mess up. So I don't like on the plane, they say to you, they give you all these rights, say, in the unlikely event of a water landing. Why are you talking about this if this is so unlikely? I've never been on a bus, and the bus driver, they don't announce on a bus, in the unlikely event of going off a bridge, right? How come you're talking about it? If you're talking about it, it might not be that unlikely. They tell you how to buckle a seatbelt on the plane. They always start with buckle your belt. This is how you buckle a belt. In case none of you have never buckled a belt in your life, they show you that on the plane. So in the unlikely event, the Brisker says in the unlikely event of messing up. Now, they're building a Mishkan. They're bringing donations. You got a lot of serving of HaKadosh Baruch Hu over here. How do you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What's the optimum, ultimate way of serving the Ribono Shel Olam? And here we're building a Mishkan with gold, silver, and everything else. The Torah tells you right there. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. Do what Hashem has commanded. That's the way you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Do what Hashem has commanded. Not what you want to do, and not what you think is right, and not what you think is creative, and not what you think would be a novel way of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, not what you want to do. That's what it all boils down to, gentlemen. Don't go wearing tchelis if tchelis is not supposed to be worn, and don't go rolling and don't go doing hisbodedus and going to do all sorts of interesting, novel ideas of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all sorts of segulas and all sorts of interesting. Just do what Hashem wants you to do. What Hashem wants you to do, He wants you to learn Gemara, Rashi, and Tosos first of all. That's what He wants you to do. Yeah, but I want to go out. I want to stand on a mountain, blow a shofar. I don't know what you want. I don't know what. You want to blow a shofar? You blow a shofar on Rosh Hashanah once a year. Blow a shofar. Don't go doing your own thing in Avodas Hashem. Avodas Hashem, we have But I don't enjoy. I don't get fulfillment that way. We're not into fulfillment. I have fulfillment. You can be a fulfillment. You don't get fulfillment. That's not a prerequisite. You'll get if you do the right thing. You'll get fulfillment. At the end of the day, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. That's the way you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do, not what you want to do. And that's what the Brisker Up is about. And, and here you're building a Mishkan, and when they build a Mishkan with all sorts of artwork and creativity and so on and so forth, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem. That's what Torah boils down to. All right. To be continued.